Hello, my loves, and welcome back. Welcome back to the Ages of Chaos, and indeed the Fluff and Hammer adjacent. Well, you probably know, don't you? You probably know what this is going to be about because, well, as those of you who follow the Fluff and Hammer know, there's a bit of history here. We've been talking about the imminent return of the Emperor's Children and Fulgrim the past. How long has the Fluff and Hammer been going? A long time. A long bloody time. There have been rumours floating around out there ever since Magnus came back and they revamped the Thousand Sons at the end of 7th edition Warhammer 40,000, which was a long time ago now. It was quite a while back. There have been rumours floating around in the ether of a Fulgrim, of new Noise Marines, of a revamped Lucius the Eternal, and of the return of the Emperor's Children as a dedicated force like the Thousand Sons for God knows how long, just ever since then. And we've been consistently getting rumors about that from so many different sources who have been saying that, oh, they've seen the Fulgrim model or they saw the designs of the Fulgrim model, and this was years ago. Years and years and years. And now I have to wonder which designs did they see? Because, of course, we've got two. There have been two Fulgrim models in a very short span of time. There was the elevated Fulgrim from the Horus Heresy line, which is very nice. Don't get me wrong; that's a lovely design. It really, really is. Actually, it's really beautiful. But it is made of resin, and it has a very long spear and very big wings. I'm a little afraid of that one. I will not be getting that one. Um, and now, at last, we have, after many months of teasing, Games Workshop have been very canny and very naughty about this. If you look at the articles released on the Warhammer community website over the last, year or so, almost every single one has some little teaser or little suggestion about the Emperor's Children. Almost all of them, including the Grotmus Christmas calendar World Eater detachment. If you look at the artwork down the side of that one, there's a Khorne Berserker in one portion of it, and then bafflingly, there's a very clear Slaneshi Noise Marine in another. Just sat there amongst all the Khornate stuff, which, if you know the lore, is kind of odd, because Khorne hates Slanesh and Slanesh hates Khorne. They are diametrically opposed on the Chaos Star, Their aspects are the opposites of one another. They hate one another. So that was odd, wasn't it? That was very odd. But what we got for Christmas from Games Workshop was a a full lowdown, a tantalizing look at the Phoenician himself as he stands in the present day of Warhammer 40k. And I kind of like this because this is establishing that there are 10,000 years have passed since the Horus Heresy. And these guys have changed. They've changed a lot. Even the demon primarchs who are immortal and resurrect again and again and again and again. They cannot die. The demon primarchs cannot be destroyed. You can destroy their physical forms, but they'll always come back. Even they are subject to change and transformation, and boy howdy, I mean, this version of Fulgrim is very, very different from the ascended version you get in the Horus Heresy. He ascends originally sort of towards the latter quarters of that war, and it's something in the background. It's something he engineers himself. This is something that marks him out amongst the traitor Primarchs. Certainly, the cult Primarchs, the cult demon Primarchs. Every single one of them, Magnus, Mortarion, and Angron, are kind of coerced into it. They don't really have any choice in the matter. Angron, in particular, has no choice in the matter. The Angron's ascension to his condition as a demon Primarch is done to him, both by Khorne, by circumstance, and by Lorgar, the Primarch of the Word Bearers. Lorgar basically engineers it so that Angron becomes the locus of a sort of very localized warp storm of anger and hate and loathing and fury, and he uses that as the means to force his ascendance into demon primarch form. When Angron ascends, he doesn't even know who Khorne is. He has no idea. He's not faithful or anything like that. He has no idea who Khorne is. He knows there are powers in the warp, but he's not dedicated to any of them. Khorne just takes him. So, I mean, it's very cool because it feeds into the nature and the aspects of Angron's story, like the themes of Angron's story. That's his nature. Angron has no will of his own. He has no volition. He has no say over his life, and he never has. He's always been a slave, and now is a slave for eternity because he can't die. He will never be released from Khorne's service because he's immortal now. He's actually kind of like a living extension or avatar of Khorne, and there's nothing he can do about it. So that's very sad. Fulgrim, on the other hand, the Primarch of the Emperor's Children, Initially initially, he kind of looks like he's going down the same route because he's possessed. His body is possessed by a demon of Slaanesh that's trapped in a sword, the Leia sword. And Fulgrim's soul, in a nice little reference to Oscar Wilde, is it's shunted into a painting of all things, and he spends his time in there sort of screaming in agony and watching this demon in his body do all sorts of terrible things. However, while he's in the painting, he starts to learn. He starts to tap into the demon and into the wider metaphysics of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and he learns what the truth is. He learns about chaos. He learns about Slaanesh in particular, my favorite of the chaos gods, and he sees in Slaanesh everything he's ever believed in or wanted. He sees perfection. He sees the absolute embodiment of all perfection in Slaanesh. He sees art and inspiration. He sees also all of the other aspects too, so desire and obsession and narcissism, and he sees the truth in it. He sees the truth in it, and in a conscious act, unlike Angron, unlike Magnus, unlike Mortarion, he consciously throws in his lot with Slaanesh. He does it completely deliberately, of his own volition, of his own desire, and as a result of that, claws his way out of the painting, rips the demon out of it, and gets back into his own body. And the demon ends up consigned in the painting. I don't know if it still exists, actually. I wonder if the up and coming Emperor's Children Codex will tell us about that. It may do, it may do. But as a result of that, he starts to lead his legion, the Emperor's Children, into the escalating depths of Slaanesh worship. And Fulgrim himself, he starts to ascend very quickly. He becomes very, very powerful very quickly. And it's towards the end he finds a means of thwarting his own ascendance. He basically coerces Perturabo, the Primarch of the Iron Warriors, to join him on this crusade into the Eye of Terror, and they end up landing on this dead Eldari world, which is one of the Crone worlds. It's one of the worlds that was pulled into the Eye of Terror when Slaanesh was born, when the Eye of Terror was ripped open. So it's this dead, demon-infested realm, and they end up fighting the ghosts of all the dead Eldari that were pulled into the warp at the time. And while they're there, Fulgrim finds it's essentially it's the crystalline core of the craft world. It's the what do they call it? The Infinity Circuit, where all the soul stones are. Eldari, when they die, their souls aren't sucked into the warp like everything else in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Because if that happens, they get consumed by Slaanesh immediately. So they entrap their souls in these little crystals, these little like bauble things, and those are fed into this big sort of like circuit. It's almost like a metaphysical computer, the heart of each of the craft worlds. He Fulgrim finds the Infinity Circuit at the heart of this craft world, and he starts. It's really creepy and weird, actually. He starts eating the soul stones, like ramming them down his gullet, even though it like makes his throat burst. And he starts wounding himself and shoving the soul stones into his wounds. It's really unpleasant. It's a really nasty, very Slaaneshi scene. And Perturabo comes upon him while he's doing this, and he's disgusted by the whole situation. I mean, Perturabo's got no, ironically, because he's become a demon Primarch in the interim too, he's got no truck with the warp at this point. He has no time for it. So he actually attacks Fulgrim, and Fulgrim uses like this stone that he gave Perturabo as like a gift, which he's wearing like an ornament, to sap Perturabo's strength from him. Even then, it's not enough because Fulgrim's in a bit of a condition at this point after like ripping himself open and shoving soul stones into his body and absorbing all of these Eldari souls into himself. And Perturabo basically smashes his physical body apart with his massive warhammer, which ironically is the Warhammer Forge Breaker, which Fulgrim himself forged. Fulgrim forged that blade for Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands, because they were close. They were they were very close before Fulgrim murdered him. Well, not it was the demon in Fulgrim's body that murdered him, but hey, same difference at this point. So there's like all of this weird poetry coalescing on Fulgrim. And as we all know, in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, in the metaphysics of that universe, poetry has weight, it has meaning, and that's the final thing his ascension needs. That's the final irony that his ascension needs. There's this great sequence in the book Angel Exterminatus where Fulgrim he ascends out of his body and he sees for the first time the full rapture of Slanesh, the true beauty of chaos, and he also sees through that the immortal truth of the universe. He sees time. He sees like time as a not as a continuum, but as this space where all things occur at once. And unlike the other demon Primarchs, all of the cult Primarchs who grudgingly accept their ascendants out of spite or because they have no choice in the matter just to survive, Fulgrim luxuriates in it. Basically, what he sees is reality as a playground, just an endless playground. And that's more or less what he's been doing for the last 10,000 years, insofar as we know. Everything past that point doesn't really matter. The heresy, he doesn't really care about that anymore. Although he takes part because it's fun, right? It affords him a lot of opportunity. He doesn't really care at that point. And over the next 10,000 years, he is the demon Primarch of Slanesh. His legs fuse into this serpentine form. He sprouts wings, he sprouts forearms, he's got horns. He's frigging beautiful. He really is. Of all the demon Primarchs, I love them all, by the way. They are some of my favorite designed characters in all of 40k. I just love them to bits. Fulgrim was always my favorite. Ever since the old days when their first miniatures were released in Epic. Do you remember that? How many of you are old enough to remember that? Be honest. I am. Yeah, I am. Ever since then, he's been my favorite. And interestingly, of all of them, he's the most consistent since those designs as well. All of the others have really been like upgraded and changed quite profoundly. They all looked a little bit generic back then. Mortarion looked like the Spectre of Death. Angron looked like just a classic, almost stereotypical red devil. And Magnus looked like some squatting blue little troll with wings and a mohawk. I'm not even kidding. It's a very interesting design. But Fulgrim kind of looks like this, what he looks like now, but really small, really small, and not with much detail because he was an old lead miniature. He was a bit of a lump, like they all were. The overall design is pretty much the same. The aesthetic is the same. And I've got to say, I've been waiting for this one because Fulgrim, he's my favourite of all the Demon Primarch. I mean, I've got a real penchant for all of them. I like them all. But, gun to head, altar to head, Sonic Blaster to head, maybe. Fulgrim's my favourite. I love the aesthetics. I love his story. I love where he goes. And he's the Slanesh Primarch as well. So he has all of that wonderful Slaneshi weirdness and beauty and deviance about him. So I was looking forward to this one with some trepidation, especially after the Fulgrim Ascended model from Horus Heresy, because that was frigging beautiful. I looked at that and I was like, well, how are they going to make it different? And B, how are they going to top it, so to speak? I could make a joke there. This is Slanesh, and it's me as well, so I could make a joke there. I'm not though, because I'm above that. Um, Fulgrim's a switch, by the way. He's versatile. There's no doubt about that. In fact, he's kind of poly and omni and everything. Slanesh, it's what it is. All things to all men, women, and everything in between. Animal, vegetable, or mineral. Do anything to anything. That's the creed of Slanesh, and Fulgrim kind of embodies that at this point. How have they done it? How have they? What they've done is they've just made him more corrupt. They've made him much more Slaneshi. He's very much in his ascended form. He's very much got. He still retains aspects of his previous Primarch self. He hasn't quite entirely surrendered those elements of his personality yet. In this demonic form, which is 10,000 years later, yeah, he has completely. Like completely. This is Fulgrim in full Slaneshi rapture, absolute rapture. Just as Angron previously is Angron in full Cornate fury, this is Fulgrim in full Slanesh rapture. And just look at him. He's up on the screen now, and he is stunning. I mean, this might be my favorite 40k model ever. Ever. I mean, it blows me away. It really does. I've got Magnus, I've got Mortarion, I've got to get Angron, but I will get Angron. This one, wow. I mean, just wow. I love everything about it. First of all, the design. I mean, I've spoken about it already. I love it. The way the legs fuse together beneath the waist into that oiling serpentine abdomen. I just love it. I love it to bits. The armor is very interesting. They've done what I hoped they would do and drawn inspiration from the design motifs in AOS, in the Hedonites of Slanesh. That is exactly what I hoped they would go for with the 40k Slanesh range, with the Emperor's Children. Because for me, the Hedonites are one of the best ranges in Age of Sigmar. They just hit what Slanesh is about on such a profound level, and the aesthetics are gorgeous. They've done that with Fulgrim's armor. It has all of these weird organic curves and spikes and bladed elements that look elegant but also kind of painful. Like when he moves, it looks like they slice in slightly into his flesh, which he probably likes a lot. And if you look very closely, there are details. They're bound onto him. The plates of armor are bound onto him by these rings that are woven through his skin, through his flesh. Love it. Absolutely frigging love it. Also on the left hand side of his breastplate, you've got a kind of it's a reference to some of the old aesthetics of Slanesh, which I really like. One of the principal gifts of Slanesh was that he would make his followers neither male nor female, but both, and that reflects this. But it's also melded into the symbol of the Emperor's Children with the big wing and it's really clever. It's really bloody clever, and I love it. I absolutely love it. The face. This is actually, he's got multiple faces that you can decide on, all of which have different expressions depending on what like whim or mood that he's feeling. And I absolutely love them. I've got to say, I absolutely love them. My personal favorite. I mean, I like all the ones that have been revealed, but my personal favorite is the one where he's just clearly laughing. He's clearly enjoying himself. Not one of the other demon primarchs has an expression like that, I can tell you. Not one. Because none of them are enjoying themselves, not to the same degree that this guy is. That's the face of a guy who's been having a giant orgy, a masquerade ball of epic proportions, of metaphysical scope for the last 10,000 years. That's what that is, and it is sublime. Absolutely wonderful. Now, apparently we get four different expressions, and we've only got three shown here, and then a helmeted face. And that's very interesting. So if you want him to look a bit more like a space marine, like he used to be, you can use the helmeted face. That's a bit of a surprise. I mean, I'm not going to go for that personally, but I like the option. I really like the option. I'm putting that big laughing face on him because I think that captures the abandon and the excess of Fulgrim to the nth degree. His weapons, I mean, apparently he's got quite a bit of choice in terms of the weapons he wields because unlike many of the Demon Primarchs, he doesn't have established weapons per se. It depends on his whim. So, he physically changes and the weapons he wields change depending on what mood he's in. And on any given day. He's got a very curved Slanesh blade that looks very like the Leia blade, by the way, that the original Greater Demon was trapped in that possessed him. He's got a whip, which again, very Slanesh, very BDSM, we love it. And I mean, most interestingly, in narrative terms, the article describes, you can't really see it in any of the photographs, but the article describes that he has a fairly plain and unadorned broadsword that he wields with incredible skill because he's Fulgrim. He does that. It's just the way of it. That, I'm almost certain, is the fire blade. It's the blade that Ferrus Manus forged for him when they first found one another, when they became friends, essentially. There's this whole sort of mythic story about when Fulgrim first met Ferrus Manus, they had a competition. They had like a competition to forge the most beautiful, the most elegant weapon. And Fulgrim forged the Forge Breaker, the hammer, and Ferrus Manus forged the Fire Blade, or one or the other. I can't remember who forged what. But they basically gifted the weapons to one another as a mark of respect. I think that's what this is. I don't know what that implies because it's certainly not the case that he remembers his brother. There's a real Fulgrim somewhere trapped inside. No, 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 no. There is nothing redeemable about this version of Fulgrim. He wouldn't even conceive of what that means. I imagine it's a slight. I imagine it's a conscious act of cruelty and of dominance and basically, he's saying to the Iron Hands chapter, "Oh, I've still got the blade, by the way. I've still got your daddy's sword. Ah, I sliced his head. Well, it wasn't. It wasn't Fulgrim that sliced his head off. It was Fulgrim. It was a demon in Fulgrim's body, but potato, potato at this point. Yeah, that's very cool. It's a nice little narrative touch. One of my favorite things because it really emphasizes the pain pleasure aspect of Slaneth, where all sensation is welcome is the wound on his abdomen, which is effectively on his groin, which is kind of cool. Way to go, Games Workshop. I'm very pleased that you've done that. And I'm not even being sarcastic. I am actually really pleased that you've done that. He's got this wound with skin that's stretched back and sort of bound into place with rings hooked through the skin. And there's a big Slanesh symbol embedded in the raw flesh underneath. It's so cool. That I love. It's very Clive Barkerian, which again, if you read the Horus Heresy novels involving the Emperor's children, there are loads of references to Oscar Wilde's fiction. There are also loads of references to Clive Barker's fiction. So yeah, this is lovely. I love this, and it really demonstrates how corrupt Fulgrim has become over the eons. It's beautiful. And also, I mean, the other thing I find interesting about this release is that when you look at the Demon Primarchs, you can extrapolate the aesthetics that they're going to be using to inform the rest of the range. And if this is the aesthetics the Emperor's Children are going to be going with, God, they're going to be my favorites by a country mile. I love my Death Guard, I love my Thousand Sons, I love them to bits, but if this is the aesthetic they're going with for the Emperor's Children, I'm in. I'm in. I can't wait, and I can't wait to see more. Actually, I mean, we know the Noise Marines are coming. We've seen the updated weaponry. There's also these rumblings of another unit out there. Like the interesting thing about the Emperor's Children is they're not as extreme or as sort of myopic, I suppose, in the way they organize themselves and wage war as the other cult legions. So in the Emperor's Children, unlike say in the World Eaters, where it's almost principally Khorne Berserkers, almost entirely Khorne Berserkers, and then like supporting units like Terminators and Eightbound and whatnot. The Emperor's Children don't work like that. Noise Marines exist, but they are not the mainstay of the Legion. They're like a subcult within the Legion, and then there are other subcults that emphasize different obsessions and extremes and ways of waging war. So apparently, according to the rumors anyway, one of the things we're getting on top of the new Noise Marines is this demon possessed unit of swordsmen. That's very interesting. I'm very interested to see where they go and what they look. I'd assume they're going to be the equivalents of the Cyberites from the Hedonites range. That would be my guess, but demon possessed, you know. And also, most interestingly, there is going to be a generic Emperor's Children Legionary unit too. So these guys, they're going to be much more flexible than in terms of tactics and army composition than, say, the Death Guard or the Thousand Sons or the World Eaters, which makes them very, very interesting, almost like unique when it comes to the cult legions. Fascinating stuff. Cannot wait. And oh my god. You better believe I'm going to be going nuts when this codex and its army box is released. I am. Will I be getting the big box that has the codex in it early? Yes. If I can get it, yes, I am. Because it's gonna be great. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I'm very excited. And yeah, Fulgrim just does it for me. He absolutely does it for me. By far my favorite of the Demon Primarch releases, and I cannot wait to get my hands on them all. Until next time, my loves, bye!